Well, we have heard some fantastic work. We've heard of some fantastic geodesign work ranging from big cities to regions to addressing global issues this week, right? Now, in this last lightning talk of the week, I want to take us to a small place with a small population working with a small class and hope to convince you of its big implications for our practice. So we will go from here at the University of Wisconsin-Madison campus, translating and teaching the geodesign framework using WebGIS entirely to reach rural communities and students like this rural community here just 30 miles west of Madison. Why? Well, recognizing the limited access to professional GIS services that in rural communities, and that they want this access, while launching an online geodesign methods course at UW-Madison, led me to implement an experiment. That is, can the geodesign framework be translated and taught entirely with Esri WebGIS technology? My premise is that the suite of Esri tools, built on an ArcGIS online format, offers ready access and sharing for communities and students in a collaborative environment. So the place, that is not the place. Sometimes you have to move up and down to get the right map to show. There we go. It's magic. So the place is the township of Vermont in the driftless area of Wisconsin, which in the larger Midwest context or Great Lakes context, this is the part of our world that was not hit by glaciers, and it left a uniquely characteristic landscape for the Midwest with real hills, ridges, and valleys dissected by streams and high-quality cold water trout streams, in fact. And so this township was interested in exploring alternative scenarios for how they might grow or how they might accommodate potential development density. And here is their tiny little town hall in the township. This place is not only characterized by an uncommon landscape, physical landscape, but the people of the place are an eclectic mix too of farmers, artists, and people living off the land independently, kind of being their own people. And so this map shows the shades of purple are different property owners, and it's shaded according to the number of potential development rights that each property owner has. So, for example, this property here is Mickelson Dairy, and that's probably about 180 acres, I would guess. They have 4 development rights, which means they could sell off 4 parcels of at least 2 acres each, anywhere that's buildable on that property. The township wants to know how to do this best and if 2 acres minimum is the best approach. The students were a mix from planning, landscape architecture, and professional practice who came back to take this class. To me, they represent what the geodesign practitioners who, maybe not us in the room, but those who are working in professional settings who realize the potential for geospatial thinking, but aren't into using GIS every day and maybe are a little bit hesitant to jump in. Here are my students at the bakery in the woods, 10 miles from any local road, and they make a go of it. So to set the groundwork, sorry, Carl, that's not the right book. There we go. I needed to Teach some process theory based on the frameworks of Geodesign by Carl Steinitz, Fritz Steiner, Ian McHarg, Forrester Ndebisi, and others. So starting with the framework for Geodesign and pairing that with hands-on practice using WebGIS tools for each model stage in the framework with Pindi Fu's WebGIS book. So how do we translate while teaching? It's a matter of matching the framework to the tools. And the first examples you'll see here are learning exercises that the students did from Pinde's book or other places that are not necessarily for the township. But I've clumped these into sets of models. So knowing and representing the place or representation models, we applied web maps, story maps, and data, collecting data. Understanding and evaluating processes, process and evaluation models, we learned through building web apps with infographics and dashboards. And then to move into change and impact models, I took them into a quick primer on GeoPlanner by developing a lesson plan or learning plan on the Esri Academy so they could get up to speed quickly. And then to understand how we would move toward decision models, right about that time, the team came out with their preview paper with 4 examples from the International Geodesign Collaboration so that my students and I could see how these processes were applied. That was about the first 5 weeks of class. Then, in early October, we started to put it into practice with potential development scenarios for the town of Vermont. And now I really had to pay attention to these iterations in the framework. So we accomplished the first iteration with a site visit, a day-long site visit to the township, driving the road, seeing the streams, looking at the farms, and spending a couple hours with the town chair to understand what they were considering changing and what impacts they were concerned about. Then, for the second iteration, I used this to have the students develop their study design, working back up through the framework from decision models to the representation, asking what does the town board need to decide, and writing out answers, sketching this, what impacts need to be measured for the decision, and on through the change, evaluation, and so on. Moving to the third iteration was when they got into putting this in to applying it for the township and decided that we wanted to integrate more data and tools, incorporating the green infrastructure approach. And we brought in Kayla, who's here from Wisconsin, who is applying a green infrastructure suitability model for Green Bay, so they could learn about that approach. And then started to build their representation and process models with the green infrastructure, built evaluation models using suitability analyses and weighted overlays right within GeoPlanner, and then and then they were able to start their change models where they used the current 2-acre minimum development, 5 and 10 acres as a township requested. And as they do that, so here these black rectangles are where the students actually drew in blocks, 10-acre blocks, by the amount of potential development rights that an individual property owner had. And the gauges keep track of how many of those they're accomplishing. And then they could evaluate these with impact models. How much of those potential development rights are in woodland, in farmland, prime farmland, or within a key viewpoint from the roadway as a way of capturing how they're maintaining the rural character of this special place. And all this leads to the decision models for the town board. So the students presented their development scenarios with performance metrics in December. And while the town is still considering those now, we then turned over these customized web maps and dashboards to the town with a viewer subscription to ArcGIS Online so that they can continue in an ongoing interactive community conversation about where they want their landscape to lead. Now, beyond teaching in townships, what does this mean? Well, this was a pretty simple project, accomplished over only a couple of months, but it was really valuable for the township. They'd never seen how their potential development might play out, and it gave me some valuable insights. First, the online mapping is accessible to rural communities, and they want it. They want to apply geospatial thinking and don't always have the resources to do so. But to accelerate that geodesign thinking, we need to customize and bundle our WebGIS tools into what I'm calling a geodesign starter kits. And by doing that, then we can reach communities and professionals anywhere in a collaborative environment. So while we are designing amazing smart cities and transforming bioregions and building climate resiliency for the coast, let's not forget about these small pockets around the world where people care really deeply about their place and they want to see clearly the possibilities for it. My intent is, imagine if we can reach all those. So my intent is to make these tools in an accessible environment where we can equip and engage communities in envisioning their future and seeing clearly the possibilities for their place. Because I believe places are at the heart of who we are, and we can help make memorable and sustainable places with geodesign. Thank you.